All right, P3, we're going to start chapter 6 of Top Secret. Remember, we left off with Alan being kicked out of class, and he can't really take off the green off of him because it seems that it's permanent right now because of the human photosynthesis that he did on himself. So I'm going to start the book. Can you believe it? I had a project that was sure to win the silver trophy. Not to mention, Miss Green would probably get voted best science teacher. And what happens? She won't even listen to me. I also had another problem. Miss Green had told me not to come back until I had washed off the green paint. Except it wasn't green paint, and I didn't know how to change myself back. As I walked home, I decided there was only one thing for me to do. I had to figure out a way to prove to Miss Green what I had done. What else could I do? But how? I asked myself. How do you prove something to somebody? Why, even my own folks didn't believe me. Or the doctor who examined me. Telling them obviously didn't work. Even seeing me didn't convince anyone, but there must be some way. People believed certain things and they didn't believe other things. Why? What made the difference? It was a long walk home, but I didn't mind. I had to think. I stopped at the park in the center of town and sat on a bench by the lake so I could watch the ducks. I put my lunch pail on my knees and opened it. Mom had packed me a big lunch because I hadn't eaten any breakfast. As expected, I still wasn't hungry. I had no appetite at all. I didn't have to eat anymore. All I needed was sunlight and water. I was making my own food internally, just as a plant does. I had become a human plant. I suddenly became very thirsty. I hurried over to the drinking fountain and drank for about 5 minutes. When I had finished, I noticed that 3 people had lined up behind me. They seemed startled when they saw my green face. Just paint, I told them. They all looked relieved. How funny, I thought. They believed something that wasn't true without questioning it. But if I had told them the truth, they wouldn't have believed me, no matter what I had said. Hi, I'm a plant. Watch me eat sunlight. Now, let me ask you, who was going to believe that? I had to figure out a way to prove it. That's all there was to it. I continued walking home thinking hard. I passed shops and restaurants and service stations. I passed the city hall and the Plaza Hotel and the Daily Courier newspaper building. The newspaper. Something had happened a few days ago. It was at breakfast. Mom and Dad were having an argument about something. I don't remember what. How do you know that? My mom had said. It says so right here in the newspaper, my father had answered. That was it! If I could somehow get my story in the newspaper, that would be all the proof I'd need. Miss Green would believe me, and so would my parents, and so would everybody. I tucked in my shirt, pushed open the heavy glass doors with both hands, and walked into the newspaper building. So Alan is talking about that he needs proof. I think he already has enough proof with all the information that he does have. For example, how he was eating liver and he was also blending it, and then the way that he feels, and he's also green, so that's proof. But I mean, it's understandable that his teacher might think it's a prank, and then his parents think that it's just an allergic reaction because that's what a medical professional said, a doctor. So What do you think is going to happen? Do you think the newspaper is going to believe him, or do you think they're going to also tell him, no, you're lying, you're playing a joke on us? Well, let's find out. Let's see how he's going to get himself out of this conflict. Remember, he's not just in a little problem anymore. He's in a conflict now because he really, really needs help. His teacher doesn't want him to come back to school. His parents are really worried. He also can't eat. So he's in a big conflict right now, and he feels that the newspaper is the only way out. So let's see what happens. You are what? I'm a plant. A what? Plant. I spelled it out for the bald-headed man who wore Coke bottle glasses and who sat behind a desk that was so piled up with papers I could barely see him. The sign on his office door had said, Features Editor. I know it's hard to believe, I continued, but please hear me out. My dad's expression worked because the man kept quiet and let me talk. Halfway through my story, he stopped me. He took out a small tape recorder from his desk and had me start over. When I had finished, the editor pressed a button and spoke into a small plastic box on his desk. Miss Padilla, he said, get me a photographer and hurry. He looked at me over the tops of the piles of papers on his desk. Do I have a beauty for tomorrow's feature? The editor believed me. I told Grandpop when I got home. My story will be in tomorrow morning's newspaper. Everyone will believe me now. Grandpop didn't seem very excited. Don't worry about other people, he told me. It's not important what they think. You don't have Miss Green for fourth grade science, I told him. The next morning, I put on my robe and went out to the driveway to wait for the newspaper. It's supposed to be delivered at 6 o'clock. It was right on time. I opened up the paper, and sure enough, there I was in living color, right on the front page of section 3. It wasn't a bad picture either. I was smiling, my hands high in the air. I put the newspaper on the kitchen table in Dad's place so he wouldn't miss it. Everything was set. All I had to do was wait. Would you look at this? Said my father as he sat down at the table picking up the wrong section of the newspaper. The president is coming to our city next week. Do you mean the President of the United States? Asked my mother. The one and only, says so right here. What on earth for? Says here he's going to be talking with members of an organization called SWS, Stop World Starvation. You know, the group the Applegates wanted us to join. I wanted to scream. There was my face right there in plain sight, right in front of my father, and he didn't see it. All he could talk about was the president and that group Peggy Applegate's parents belonged to. Be patient, I told myself. He'll see it. Give him time. My dad continued reading about the president. Alan, my mother asked me, do you feel like eating breakfast? I don't want you to getting sick again. Just a glass of water, Mom. And then my father saw it. I could tell because the scrambled eggs he had just put into his mouth came tumbling out onto his plate. He didn't say anything for the longest time. Then he just looked at me and said, Tell me it isn't true, Alan. It is, Dad. You can read it right there in the newspaper. My father picked up the paper and read the headline aloud. Human plant eats only sunlight. The amazing true story of Alan Brewster. He handed the newspaper to my mother. What are the neighbors going to say? And the guys at the office? Oh, Alan, said my mom when she saw the paper. What have you done? I've proved it. That's what I've done. I've got it in the newspaper. Now you believe me, don't you? Listen to me, Alan, said my father, rubbing the back of his neck. And listen good. Every week, this newspaper features some sensational story. Last week, it was some minister getting ready to rise to heaven. The poor man had sold his house and everything. They do it to sell newspapers. It doesn't prove a thing. It doesn't. In fact, it makes it worse. You mean Miss Green won't believe me either? Nobody in their right mind will believe you. And furthermore, I'm sick and tired of hearing about your discovery. I'm sick and tired of you not eating your meals. You are a 9-year-old boy like all other 9-year-old boys. You are not a plant. The discussion is closed. Do I make myself clear? Yes, I said, very clear. So, what do you think Alan's going to do? He just put on the newspaper that he is a plant. What do you think his classmates are going to say? Do you think they're going to be supportive? Do you think his classmates are going to believe him? Do you think that Miss Green is going to believe him? What do you think is going to happen? What do you predict will happen when he goes to school the next day? Or actually, it's already the day. So, what do you think is going to happen? A lot of people are probably going to be reading the newspaper, maybe even Miss Green, and they're going to find out that Alan thinks that he's a plant. So, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to get out of this conflict, or do you think that his parents are right and it's going to get worse? Please write your predictions, or we can talk about it also on Monday, or you can also email them to me, whatever you want to do. So, or we can talk about it the following week because, we're going to be talking every week on Monday, and when we talk about reading the next chapter, then we can talk about like your predictions and all that. All right, P3, have a great week. I will talk to you soon.